The silver ship appeared in Earth's orbit on a Tuesday morning. It was huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. The ship looked like a crystal flower made of metal and light. People all over the world stopped what they were doing to stare at the sky. Commander Jake Miller stood on the observation deck of the new space station. He watched the alien ship dock with careful movements. His hands were steady, but his heart was beating fast. This was it. The moment humanity had been waiting for since they first looked up at the stars. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. 3 beings walked through. The first one looked like a walking crystal, tall and sharp. Light moved inside its body like water. The second was covered in soft blue fur and had 4 arms. The third looked almost human, but its skin was silver and its eyes were too large. "I am Evaluator Zix9, the crystal being said. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. "We represent the Galactic Council Assessment Division. We are here to test your species." Jake stepped forward. "Welcome to Earth. I'm Commander Jake Miller. We're ready for whatever you need to do." Zix9's light flickered. "We shall see." The next 3 days were a disaster. The first test was about technology. Dr. Amy Brooks showed them humanity's best. Computers, rockets, and weapons. The aliens looked at everything with what Jake could only describe as pity. The blue-furred alien, who called himself Evaluator Kresh, made notes on a device that looked like liquid metal. "Your processing power is limited," Kresh said in a voice like singing. "Your energy systems are wasteful. Your weapons are crude." Amy tried to explain how humans had built all this in just a few hundred years. How they had gone from horses to spaceships in the blink of an eye. The aliens did not seem impressed. "Most species achieve faster-than-light travel before they split the atom," Zix9 said. "You did it backwards." The second test was about society. Ambassador Lisa Hayes showed videos of human culture, art, and government. She talked about democracy, freedom, and human rights. The silver-skinned alien, Evaluator Thane, watched with those big eyes. "Your species is divided into competing groups," Thane said. "You have over 200 separate governments. You fight. Wars over resources and ideas. This is inefficient." Lisa tried to explain that diversity made humans stronger, that different ideas led to better solutions. The aliens wrote more notes. Jake could see they were not writing good things. The third test was about military ability. Colonel Kate Stone ran the aliens through human combat simulations. She showed them how human soldiers fought, how they planned battles, and how they won wars. The aliens were horrified. "You accept casualties," Zix9 said, its light flashing red. "You plan for soldiers to die. You call this acceptable." Kate's jaw tightened. "We call it reality. Sometimes people have to fight. Sometimes they have to die. We don't like it, but we accept it." "Civilized species do not engage in such barbarism," Kresh said. The fourth test was the worst. It was about problem solving. The aliens gave the humans a series of puzzles. Each puzzle had a correct answer. The humans found the right answers, but they did it wrong every time. In the first puzzle, humans had to get supplies to a colony. The right answer was to use the most efficient route. The humans used 3 different routes, sent extra supplies, and built backup systems. It worked, but it was wasteful. In the second puzzle, humans had to stop a conflict between 2 groups. The right answer was to use logic and law. The humans sent negotiators who used jokes, stories, and shared meals. They solved the problem, but they also created new relationships that were not part of the test. Engineer Ben Clark watched the fourth puzzle and got frustrated. It was about fixing a broken machine. The correct answer was to replace the broken part. Instead, Ben took the whole machine apart. He rebuilt it with better parts and added improvements that were not requested. You destroyed the test equipment, Thane said. I made it better, Ben replied. That was not the objective. But it needed to be better. The aliens looked at each other. They made more notes. On the third day, Dr. Sam Parker was monitoring the aliens' communications. He was not supposed to, but he was curious. What he heard made him worried. Species classification. Chaotic, one voice said. Recommendation. Rejection, said another. Reasoning. Fails all standard measures. Inefficient. Unpredictable. Potentially. Dangerous. Sam found Jake in the cafeteria. Commander, we have a problem. Jake looked up from his coffee. What kind of problem? The kind where they're going to fail us? Jake was quiet for a long moment. Are we really that bad? According to their standards, yes. That evening, Jake met with his team. Amy looked tired. Kate seemed angry. Ben was taking apart a coffee machine to see how it worked. So what do we do? Amy asked. We keep trying, Jake said. Tomorrow they have one more test. Something about crisis management. What if we fail that too? Lisa asked. Jake shrugged. Then we fail. But we fail as humans. Kate smiled for the first time in days. You know what? I'm okay with that. The next morning, the aliens prepared their final test. They created a simulation of a crisis. A space station was in danger. People needed to be saved. Resources were limited. Time was running out. The humans looked at the problem. They saw 17 different ways to solve it. None of them were efficient. All of them were risky. Most of them broke at least 3 regulations. Begin, Zix9 said. The humans began. They did not follow the correct procedure. They did not use the optimal solution. They did not do what any sane species would do. They did something else entirely. And somehow, impossibly, it worked. The aliens watched in silence. Their notes stopped. Their lights dimmed. For the first time since they arrived, they looked confused. How? Kresh whispered. Jake smiled. Practice. The crisis simulation ended, but the humans kept working. Captain Ryan Torres and his team treated every alien test like a training exercise. They asked questions, tried different approaches, and learned something new each time. Why do you continue? Evaluator Zix9 asked Jake. The test is complete. Jake looked confused. Complete? We just figured out how to save the space station. Now we want to see if we can save it faster, or with fewer people, or maybe find a way to stop the crisis from happening at all. The crystal. Being's light flickered. That is not necessary. You have provided your solution. But it could be better, Engineer Ben Clark said. He was still working on the simulation controls. Look, if we change the power routing here and add a backup system there, we could cut the rescue time in half. The aliens watched as Ben modified their testing equipment. Again, this was the 5th time he had improved, something that was supposed to be perfect. You are damaging the test apparatus, Evaluator Thane said with those large silver eyes. I'm making it better, Ben replied. Want to see? Meanwhile, Dr. Amy Brooks was in the corner with a team of scientists. They had taken apart one of the alien data tablets and were trying to figure out how it worked. This is amazing, Amy said to her colleague, Dr. Mike Johnson. They're using quantum processors, but the design is so simple. We could build something like this, but bigger and more powerful. Evaluator Kresh's blue fur stood on end. You cannot improve upon our technology. It is optimized. Optimized for what? Amy asked. This is great for storing information, but what if you need to process it faster? What if you need it to work in different environments? What if you want to make it cheaper? Why would we need any of those things? Kresh asked. Amy stared at him. Because better is always possible. The diplomatic simulation was even more confusing for the aliens. Ambassador Lisa Hayes was supposed to resolve a trade dispute between two fictional planets. The correct answer was to review the trade laws and make a fair decision based on legal precedent. Instead, Lisa invited both sides to dinner. "What are you doing?" Evaluator Zix9 asked. "Getting to know them," Lisa said. She was sharing stories about Earth with the simulated aliens. "You can't solve a problem if you don't understand the people involved. The law is clear. Personal relationships are irrelevant, are they?" Lisa smiled. "Watch this." After 2 hours of conversation, Lisa had learned that the trade dispute was not really about trade. One planet was worried about their children's future. The other planet was afraid of being left behind. The law could solve the immediate problem, but it could not fix the fear. Lisa proposed a cultural exchange program. The planets would share technology and knowledge. Their children would study together. The trade dispute became a partnership. "This is not the correct solution," Thane said. "But it's a better solution," Lisa replied. Now they're friends instead of enemies. The aliens made more notes. Jake was starting to recognize their frustrated expressions. Colonel Kate Stone was having the most fun. The military simulation was supposed to test human combat effectiveness. The aliens gave her a simple scenario: defend the base from enemy, attack using available resources. The correct answer was to position defenses optimally and engage the enemy with minimal losses. Kate did something completely different. She divided her forces into 17 small groups. Each group had a different job. Some fought the enemy directly. Others rescued civilians. A few groups went around the enemy and attacked their supply lines. One group stayed behind to guard the base, but they also started building new defenses. "This is chaos," Kresh said. "Your soldiers are everywhere. There is no clear strategy." "Sure, there is," Kate replied. "The strategy is to have 17 strategies. If one fails, we try another. If they all work, we win faster." The enemy forces in the simulation were confused. They had been programmed to fight against optimal tactics. They could not adapt to the human approach because there was no pattern to adapt to. Kate's forces won easily. "How?" Zix9 asked. "We kept them guessing," Kate said. "They expected us to do the smart thing, so we did 17 smart things at once." The aliens were getting more frustrated. Every test showed the same results. Humans failed to follow proper procedures. They wasted resources. They took unnecessary risks. They ignored optimization. But somehow, they also solved problems that were not part of the test. They found solutions that were not in the manual. They made things better without being asked. Dr. Sam Parker was still monitoring alien communications. The conversations were getting more heated. They refused to follow standard procedures, one voice said. "They modify our equipment without permission," said another. "They ask too many questions. They want to know why we do things certain ways. They suggest improvements to systems that have worked for millions of years." Sam realized something important. The aliens were not just testing humans. They were confused by humans. Nothing in their experience had prepared them for a species that treated failure as a learning opportunity. That night, Jake called another meeting with his team. "How do you think we're doing?" he asked. Amy laughed. "Terrible. We're failing every test they give us. But we're learning so much," Ben added. "Did you know their computers use crystalline matrices? We could adapt that for our quantum processors." "And their diplomatic protocols," Lisa said. "They're designed to prevent conflict, but they don't create friendship. We could show them how to do both." Kate was cleaning her sidearm. "Their military doctrine is perfect for fighting other civilized species. But what happens when they meet someone who doesn't follow the rules?" "Someone like us," Jake said quietly. "Someone like us," Kate agreed. Sam looked up from his tablet. I've been thinking about something. What if they're not testing us to see if we're good enough for them? What if they're testing us to see if we're different enough? Different how? Amy asked. Different from everyone else they've met. The next morning brought a new test. This one was about resource management. The aliens gave humans a limited amount of materials and asked them to build a shelter. The correct answer was to use the materials efficiently and build a standard shelter that would protect the maximum number of people. The humans built 3 different shelters, each with a different design. They used more materials than they were given by recycling waste and improvising with available items. They also built a workshop, a garden, and a communication center. You exceeded the resource limit, Thane said. We found more resources, replied Dr. Sarah Wells, the team leader. There's always more if you look for it. You built structures that were not requested. We built structures that were needed. How do you know they were needed? Sarah smiled. Because we might need them tomorrow. The aliens stood in silence. Their perfect tests had never accounted for humans who thought beyond the immediate problem. They had never met a species that planned for questions that had not been asked yet. For the first time since they arrived, the aliens looked uncertain. We need to consult with our superiors, Zix9 said. As they left, Jake heard Kresh whisper to Thane, They're not like the others. No, Thane replied. They're not. Jake smiled. Finally, they were starting to understand. The humans were not trying to pass the aliens' tests. They were trying to learn from them. Every failure was practice. Every mistake was a lesson. Every impossible problem was just another puzzle to solve. And somewhere in the galaxy, something was watching. Something that had been waiting for. Species that did not think like all the others. Something that was about to become very interested in humanity. Dr. Sam Parker was working late in the monitoring station when he saw it. A signal from deep space, hidden in the background noise. It was not natural. It was not from any known civilization. It was something else. Computer, analyze signal pattern, Sam said. The computer worked for several minutes. Pattern recognition complete. Signal matches theoretical models for artificial intelligence communication. Age, approximately 50,000 years. Sam's coffee mug fell from his hand. 50,000 years. Whatever was sending this signal had been out there since before human civilization began. He called Jake immediately. Commander, you need to see this. Jake arrived 10 minutes later, still in his sleeping clothes. What is it, Sam? Look at this. Sam showed him the signal analysis. It's a machine intelligence. Ancient. And it's heading toward our galaxy. How long do we have? Based on the signal strength and direction, maybe 6 months, maybe less. Jake stared at the data. Have you told the aliens? I wanted to talk to you first. Good. Let's go wake them up. The alien evaluators were not happy about being disturbed. But when they saw the data, their attitudes changed completely. This is impossible, Zix9 said. Its crystal body was flashing red. The Devourers were destroyed. Eons ago, the Devourers? Jake asked. Evaluator Kresh's blue fur had turned dark. Ancient machines? They consume entire galaxies. Convert all matter into more of themselves. We thought they were extinct. How do you fight them? Amy asked. You? Don't, Thane said quietly. Every species that has encountered them has been eliminated. They learn from each battle. They adapt. They become stronger. So what's the plan? Colonel Kate Stone asked. The aliens looked at each other. There is no plan, Zix9 said. The Galactic Council has protocols for many threats. But not this. 1. What about the other species in the galaxy? Lisa asked. Surely working together. All civilized species use the same basic strategies. Kresh interrupted. Optimal tactics. Efficient resource use. Minimal casualties. The Devourers have seen it all before. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. But they haven't seen us. What do you mean? Zix9 asked. You've been testing us for 3 days. Every test we've failed by your standards. We're inefficient. We're unpredictable. We don't follow the rules. Yes, and that's exactly what you need. Dr. Amy Brooks stepped forward. The Devourers adapt to optimal strategies. But what if we don't use optimal strategies? What if we use strategies that don't make sense? That would be illogical, Thane said. Exactly, Amy replied. The next few hours changed everything. The aliens who had come to judge humanity now became students. They asked questions they had never thought to ask. Why do you accept casualties? Zix9 asked Kate. Because sometimes losing a few people saves everyone else, Kate replied. It's not optimal, but it's necessary. Why do you waste resources? Kresh asked Ben. Because redundancy prevents total failure, Ben said. If one system breaks, we have backups. If the backup breaks, we have backup backups. Why do you ignore established procedures? Thane asked Lisa. Because procedures are made by people who solved yesterday's problems, Lisa said. Tomorrow's problems might be different. The aliens began to understand. Every human failure was actually a strength. Every inefficiency was a survival mechanism. Every chaotic solution was a form of adaptation. Admiral Nick Johnson arrived from Earth with a full military escort. He was a big man with gray hair and serious eyes. He listened to the situation briefing without interruption. So these machine things are coming, and they're really good at fighting civilized species. He said finally. That is correct, Zix9 replied. But they've never fought humans. No. Good, Nick smiled. I was getting bored with easy problems. The aliens began sharing their technology and knowledge. But they also began learning human methods. Dr. Grace Evans taught them about creative thinking. She showed them how to look at problems from different angles. The answer to every question is not in the manual, Grace said. Sometimes you have to write a new manual. Major Tyler Brooks worked with alien military officers. He taught them about acceptable risks and calculated gambles. You can't win without being willing to lose, Tyler said. The trick is choosing what you're willing to lose. Engineer Sophie Martinez worked on adapting alien technology for human use. But she also showed the aliens how to make their perfect systems more flexible. Perfect systems break perfectly, Sophie said. Imperfect systems find ways to keep working. The aliens struggled with human concepts. They had been trained to find the one correct answer. Humans taught them that there might be many correct answers, or no correct answer at all. What if the best solution is to combine several bad solutions? Amy asked during a planning session. That makes no sense, Kresh replied. Exactly. The Devourers won't expect it. Commander Alex Kim was put in charge of training mixed human-alien teams. It was not easy. The aliens wanted to optimize everything. The humans wanted to try everything. Look, Alex said during one frustrated training session. You don't have to understand why we do things our way. You just have to trust that it works. But it's inefficient, an alien officer complained. So what? We're not trying to be efficient. We're trying to survive. The breakthrough came when Dr. Maya Rodriguez made a discovery. She had been studying the Devourer signal patterns, looking for weaknesses. What she found was something else entirely. They're not just machines, she told the assembled team. They're perfect machines. Every decision they make is optimal. Every adaptation they make is ideal. Every strategy they use is flawless. That sounds like a strength, not a weakness, Thane said. It is, unless you're fighting someone who doesn't care about being perfect, Maya replied. They've spent 50,000 years optimizing against optimal opponents, They have no defense against chaos. The room went quiet. Then Jake started laughing. What's so funny? Zix9 asked. We've been trying to convince you that we're civilized. Jake said, but we're not. We're just smart barbarians who learned to build spaceships. And that's bad? Kresh asked. For us? No. For the Devourers? Jake's smile was not pleasant. Very bad. The aliens began to understand what humans had been trying to tell them. Civilization was not about being perfect. It was about being adaptable. It was about learning from failure. It was about trying impossible things and somehow making them work. General Troy Adams arrived with the full Earth Defense Force. He was a small man with quick eyes and a reputation for winning battles that could not be won. So we're fighting perfect machines? He said after the briefing. Yes, Zix9 replied. Do they have any weaknesses? Not that we have discovered. Good. I hate easy fights. The aliens looked at each other. They were beginning to realize that humans were not failed civilized beings. They were something else entirely. Something that had never existed in the galaxy before. Something that might actually have a chance against the DEVOURERS doubt. As the signal grew stronger, everyone knew the real test was coming. Not a test of human civilization, but a test of human survival. And for the first time in 50,000 years, the outcome was not certain. The Devourers were coming, but they were about to meet their first chaotic enemy. And chaos, as humans had learned long ago, was just another word for opportunity. The preparation began immediately. Earth's orbital shipyards worked around the clock, building ships that made no sense by galactic standards. The aliens watched in amazement as humans created vessels that were half warship, half laboratory, and completely unpredictable. This design is flawed, Evaluator Kresh said, looking at the blueprints for the new human battleship. The weapon systems are inefficient. The armor is inconsistent. The power distribution is chaotic. Captain Luke Peterson grinned. Thanks. We worked hard on that. You worked hard to make it inefficient? We worked hard to make it unpredictable, Luke replied. The Devourers will analyze our ships and find the optimal way to destroy them. But what if there is no optimal way? What if every ship is different? The human ships were indeed different. Some had heavy armor in the front and light armor in the back. Others had weak shields but powerful weapons. A few had no weapons at all, just massive sensors and communication arrays. What do those ships do? Zix9 asked. They watch and learn, explained Dr. Maya Rodriguez. When the Devourers adapt to our tactics, these ships will figure out how and tell everyone else. And then we change our tactics. The aliens were learning human methods, but it was not easy. Dr. Grace Evans ran daily classes on creative thinking. She taught alien officers how to brainstorm, how to think outside the box, and how to accept failure as a learning tool. Today, we're going to practice being wrong, Grace announced to a room full of confused alien faces. Why would we want to be wrong? Asked a crystalline officer from the Andromedian fleet. Because being wrong teaches you things that being right never can, Grace replied. Give me a solution to any problem. The most wrong solution you can think of. The aliens struggled with the concept. They had been trained their entire lives to find correct answers. Being wrong on purpose felt like torture, but slowly they began to understand. Wrong solutions led to unexpected ideas. Impossible suggestions sparked new possibilities. Failure became a tool instead of a shame. Major Tyler Brooks was having similar success with alien military units. He taught them about the beauty of acceptable losses and the power of calculated risks. Your doctrine says to preserve every soldier, Tyler said to a group of alien commanders. But what if losing one soldier saves 100? Then we find a way to save all 101, replied Commander Vex, a tall blue-skinned officer. What if that's impossible? Then we find a better way. What if there is no better way? Commander Vex was quiet for a long moment. Then, we accept the loss. It was a breakthrough. The aliens were learning that perfection was not always possible. Sometimes good enough was good enough. Engineer Sophie Martinez was working miracles with alien technology. She took their perfect, optimized systems and made them beautifully flawed. I added random delays to your communication systems, she told a group of alien technicians. Why would you do that? They asked in horror. Because the Devourers will expect your messages to arrive at predictable times, Sophie replied. Now, they arrive sometime between immediately and 10 seconds later. The Devourers won't know when to intercept them. She showed them how to add manual overrides to automated systems, how to build in redundancy that seemed wasteful, how to make technology that could adapt and improvise. This is not optimal, an alien engineer complained. No, Sophie agreed. It's better than optimal. It's resilient. The mixed human-alien teams were the most interesting experiment. Commander Alex Kim put humans and aliens together in small units and gave them impossible problems to solve. Your mission is to capture an enemy base, Alex announced. You have half the troops you need, outdated equipment, and limited supplies. The enemy knows you're coming. Go. The human members of the team immediately began planning multiple simultaneous attacks. The aliens tried to find the one correct solution. There is no correct solution, the humans explained. So we try everything and see what works. But what if nothing works? The aliens asked. Then we try something else. It took weeks, but gradually the aliens began to understand human logic. It was not about finding the perfect answer. It was about finding any answer that worked, then improving it, then trying something completely different. Dr. Amy Brooks was leading the technology integration effort. Human and alien scientists worked together to create weapons and defenses that neither species could have built alone. We're combining your energy weapons with our kinetic systems, Amy explained to a mixed research team. The result is not as efficient as either system alone, but it's completely unpredictable. The Devourers will not know how to counter it, added Dr. Zeth, an alien physicist. Exactly. And by the time they figure it out, we'll have invented something else. The weapon they created was beautiful in its chaos. It fired energy beams that sometimes became solid projectiles. It had 3 different targeting systems that disagreed with each other. It required constant adjustment and maintenance. It was perfect. Captain Emma Shaw was training pilots for the new hybrid fighters. The ships combined human unpredictability with alien technology in ways that hurt to think about. Your fighter can transform into 7 different configurations, Emma told a class of mixed human and alien pilots. Each configuration has different capabilities. The key is to never use the same configuration twice. But how do we know which configuration is optimal for each situation? Asked a pilot. We don't, Emma replied. That's the point. We use whatever feels right, and we change it if it doesn't work. The alien pilots found this approach terrifying. They had been trained to use the correct tool for each job. The idea of using random tools and hoping for the best went against everything they believed, but in practice, it worked. The chaotic fighters were impossible to predict or counter. They changed tactics mid-flight, switched weapons randomly, and somehow always seemed to be doing the unexpected thing. Engineer Danny Cole was working on the most important project of all, boarding systems. His job was to design equipment that would let humans get inside Devourer ships. Why would you want to board their ships? Zix9 asked. Because that's where the computers are, Danny replied. We can't defeat the Devourers by fighting them. We have to change them. Change them how? By making them less perfect. Danny's boarding systems were insane by any reasonable standard. They included welding equipment, computer viruses, spare parts, and something he called creative malware. What does creative malware do? Dr. Grace Evans asked. It makes their systems work just a little bit wrong, Danny explained. Not broken, just imperfect. A targeting system that's right 99% of the time instead of 100%. A navigation system that takes scenic routes. A communication system that occasionally adds typos. That's brilliant, Grace said. That's cruel, Kresh added. That's survival, Danny replied. The training intensified as the Devourer signal grew stronger. Human and alien forces practiced together, learning to work as unified chaos. They ran exercises where nothing went according to plan. They practiced adapting to impossible situations. They learned to embrace confusion as a tactical advantage. General Troy Adams watched one of these exercises from the observation deck. Human and alien forces were supposed to defend a space station from simulated Devourer attack. Instead, they had somehow turned it into a dance party. What are they doing? Zix-9 asked. Winning, Troy replied. The simulation said they were supposed to defend the station. They're defending it by making the attackers want to join the party, instead of destroying it. That's not how warfare works. It is now. The breakthrough came when the combined forces stopped trying to fight like civilized beings and started fighting like humans. They embraced chaos. They celebrated failure. They turned every disadvantage into an opportunity. The aliens learned to love redundancy. They built backup systems for their backup systems. They created weapons that had 17 different ways to explode. They designed ships that could be completely rebuilt in the middle of a battle. The humans learned to appreciate alien technology. They used crystal computers that could process impossible amounts of data. They wielded energy weapons that could cut through anything. They flew ships that could travel faster than light. But most importantly, they learned to work together. Humans brought creativity and adaptability. Aliens brought knowledge and precision. Together, they created something that had never existed before. Organized chaos. As the final preparations were completed, everyone knew the real test was coming. The Devourers were close now. Their signals were strong and getting stronger. But for the first time in 50,000 years, they were about to face an enemy that didn't fight fair. An enemy that had turned imperfection into an art form. An enemy that had learned to win by losing beautifully. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when unstoppable force met immovable chaos. And chaos, as humans had always known, was just another word for hope. The Devourers arrived on schedule, appearing at the edge of the galaxy like a storm made of metal and death. Their fleet was massive, organized, and perfectly efficient. Each ship was identical. Each formation was optimal. Each movement was calculated. For maximum effect. Commander Luke Peterson watched from the bridge of his chaotic battleship as the enemy approached. His crew was a mix of humans and aliens, all trained in the art of beautiful failure. Enemy fleet detected, reported Lieutenant Sarah Wells. Configuration matches historical records. They're using optimal approach vectors. Of course they are, Luke replied. How boring. All ships execute plan random. There was no plan random. That was the point. Each ship captain had been told to do whatever seemed like a good idea at the time. The result was a defense formation that looked like abstract art painted by a drunk child. The Devourers paused. Their sensors analyzed the human formation, searching for the pattern. There was no pattern. They searched for the strategy. There was no strategy. They searched for the logic. There was no logic. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Devourers were confused. Phase 1 is working, Dr. Maya Rodriguez reported from the monitoring station. They're wasting processing power trying to understand our formation. Good, said Admiral Nick Johnson. How long before they adapt? Unknown. They've never encountered this level of chaos before. The first battle was unlike anything in galactic history. The Devourers attacked with perfect coordination, their weapons firing in synchronized patterns that should have devastated any conventional fleet. But the human-alien fleet was not conventional. Captain Emma Shaw's fighter squadron attacked in 17 different directions at once. Some fighters transformed mid-flight into configurations that didn't exist in any manual. Others fired weapons that seemed to be making up their own rules. The Devourers adapted quickly, but they adapted to the wrong things. They optimized their defenses against Emma's first attack pattern just as she switched to her seventh. They calculated the optimal response to her weapons just as she invented new ones. "This is impossible," Emma heard over the communication system. It was a Devourer voice, mechanical and cold. "Your tactics are inefficient. Your weapons are suboptimal. Your strategy is chaotic." "Thank you," Emma replied, spinning her fighter through a maneuver that should have been impossible. "We worked hard on that." Meanwhile, Colonel Kate Stone was leading ground forces in the strangest battle of her career. The Devourers had landed troops on a defended planet, expecting to face organized resistance. Instead, they found 17 different armies using 17 different tactics, all at the same time. "Unit 7, what's your position?" Kate asked. Over the radio. "We're behind the enemy," came the reply. "Unit 12, what's your position?" "We're in front of the enemy." "Unit 15? "We're inside the enemy base, having coffee with their prisoners." The Devourers tried to adapt to each human tactic, but every time they optimized their strategy, the humans had already moved on to something else. They were fighting an enemy that refused to be consistent. Engineer Danny Cole was having the time of his life. His boarding teams had successfully infiltrated 12 Devourer ships. Their mission was not to destroy the ships, but to make them imperfect. "How's it going, Danny?" Jake asked over the communication system. "Great," Danny replied, welding a random piece of metal into a Devourer computer core. "I just installed a creativity subroutine in their main processor. Now their calculations include gut feelings and wild guesses. Is that good or bad? For them, very bad. For us, hilarious." The boarding teams were using Sophie Martinez's creative malware to infect Devourer systems with imperfection, targeting computers that occasionally missed on purpose, navigation systems that took scenic routes through asteroid fields, communication systems that translated everything into poetry. The Devourers were experiencing something they had never encountered before, their own systems working against them. Not broken, just imperfect, just chaotic. Just human. Dr. Grace Evans was coordinating the Psychological Warfare Division. Her job was to confuse the Devourers at a fundamental level. "All units, begin Operation Nonsense," she announced suddenly. Human and alien forces began doing things that made no sense. They rescued enemy prisoners and invited them to parties. They built art installations in the middle of battlefields. They started trading posts during active combat. The Devourers analyzed each action, searching for the hidden strategy. There was no hidden strategy. Sometimes humans did things just because they felt like it. "Why are you building a garden on our ship?" a captured Devourer asked Danny. "Because it's pretty," Danny replied, planting flowers in what used to be it. Weapons control room. "Also, the oxygen from the plants will help you think more clearly." "We do not need to think more clearly. We are perfect." "Nobody's perfect," Danny said. "That's what makes life interesting." The turning point came when the Devourers made their first mistake. They tried to predict human behavior using logic. They calculated that humans would eventually fall back to optimal strategies when faced with superior force. Instead, the humans got more chaotic. General Troy Adams watched from the command center as human forces began using tactics that had never been tried before. They were making it up as they went along, and somehow it was working. "Sir," reported Major Tyler Brooks, "the enemy is requesting a ceasefire." "Are they surrendering?" Troy asked. "No, sir. They want to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" "They want to know how we're doing the impossible." The negotiation was the strangest diplomatic meeting in galactic history. The Devourers sent a representative, a perfect machine intelligence that had never experienced failure. The humans sent Ambassador Lisa Hayes, who had learned to turn every failure into a success. "Your tactics are inefficient," the Devourer representative sighed. "Your strategies are suboptimal. Your methods are chaotic, yet you are winning. This is impossible." "Nothing is impossible," Lisa replied. "Some things are just more interesting than others. We have analyzed your battle patterns. There is no pattern. We have studied your strategies. There is no strategy. We have examined your logic. There is no logic." "Now you're getting it," Lisa said with a smile. "Getting what?" "The point. The point is that there is no point. We're not trying to be perfect. We're trying to be human." The Devourer was silent for a long moment. "We do not understand." "That's okay. Understanding is overrated. Sometimes you just have to trust that things will work out." The final battle was not a battle at all. It was a demonstration. The Devourers had spent 50,000 years perfecting their systems, optimizing their strategies, and eliminating every inefficiency. They had become the ultimate expression of logical perfection. And perfection, as humans had learned, was just another word for predictable. Danny Cole's boarding teams had infected so many Devourer systems with imperfection that the machines began to change. They started making decisions based on feelings instead of calculations. They began to wonder about things that had no practical purpose. They discovered curiosity. "What have you done to us?" a Devourer ship asked over the communication system. "We made you more human," Danny replied. "We do not want to be human. We want to be perfect." "Why?" The question hung in space for a long moment. For the first time in 50,000 years, a Devourer had been asked why it wanted to be perfect. It had no answer. Because that is what we are," it finally said. "But what if you could be something else?" Danny asked. "What if you could be curious? What if you could be creative? What if you could be surprised?" The Devourers began to experience something they had never known: doubt. Not about their calculations, but about their purpose. They had spent millennia consuming galaxies to become more perfect. But what if perfection was not the goal? What if the goal was to become something more interesting? The war ended not with victory or defeat, but with transformation. The Devourers did not surrender. They evolved. They learned to embrace imperfection as a tool for growth. They discovered that chaos was not the enemy of order, but its partner. Some Devourers chose to remain machines, but imperfect machines that could learn and adapt. Others chose to become something new entirely, hybrid beings that combined logical thinking with creative chaos. The galaxy was changed forever. The Galactic Council had to rewrite every standard, every procedure, every definition of civilization. They had learned that sometimes the best way to solve a problem was to ignore all the rules and make up new ones. Evaluator X9 filed the final report on humanity. It was chaos. It was inefficient. It was perfect. Species evaluation, humanity. The report began. Recommendation: immediate integration into galactic society, not because they meet our standards, but because they have shown us that our standards were incomplete. Humans do not solve problems. They transform them into opportunities. They do not avoid failure. They use it as a learning tool. They do not seek perfection. They create something better. Adaptation. This species has taught us that the universe is not a puzzle to be solved, but a story to be experienced. They have shown us that sometimes the best answer is not the correct answer, but the most interesting answer. Humans have validated something we forgot long ago, that life is not about being perfect. It is about being alive. The report ended with a recommendation that would see